Now let's take a look at troubleshooting, starting with the problem. Then we'll talk about a few potential causes and the solutions for those causes. So we have hot water takes longer to get up to temperature. There's a few reasons for that. One, your cold water is mixing into the hot water side. That potentially happens when all your valves might be open and it's mixing in like you're turning the hot and the cold water on, only it's doing that in the system. So make sure that all your valves inside and out, they're closed, and check your shower head and make sure that that valve is not partially closed. Then you have higher elevation. This is normal. If it's above that 4,500 feet, you're going to see lesser oxygen levels, and that's going to affect the temperature of your water. Extreme conditions of cold water, we talked about that a little bit earlier. If it's less than 45 degrees or the pressure is greater than 65 psi, you're going to want to adjust that water control valve. The next problem is low hot water flow at the faucet. And that might be that it's just being choked by lime or calcification inside the water heater. So make sure that you decalcify it once a year. The next problem is no hot water at the tap. So there's a couple different problems here. You might not have any gas to the water heater, whether it is turned off or the gas tank might be empty. So check those two things. Then the appliance is switched off or fresh water supply is turned off. The appliance has a switch inside the door. We talked about that. I showed you that. Make sure that's on. And the fresh water supply for the RV, make sure that's on. And the power supply to the appliance, circuit breaker, make sure you have the 12 volts needed to run the water heater. And then last one, the water heater might just need to be replaced. For the next problem, we have hot water temperature is too low. So make sure the gas flow to the appliance is appropriate, which is 11 inches of water column. Consult your vehicle documentation and make sure that you have that supplied gas to the appliance. Now, volume flow of hot water is too high. Really what you're talking about there is that you potentially could have too much of the water coming out of the water heater going to too many appliances. So you have a faucet and a shower at full blast of hot water, so you just are exceeding that 2.4 gallons per minute. Next one, you have too much lime scale again. Decalcify the water heater once a year and that'll solve that problem. Same thing, cold water is mixing into the hot water side. If you have too many valves open and you have too much cold water running into the hot water, you're going to lower that temperature in all across your faucets and shower. So make sure that those are closed. The next one is water escaping at the pressure safety valve. Now, remember the safety valve is at the rear of the appliance and it opens up when the water pressure in the system gets above 65 psi. So you need to get that lower. So the first one is your water pressure is too high. Adjust the water pump on the RV and get that lower than the 65 psi. Or if you have a central water supply hooked up, you can add a water pressure reducer so it lowers it below that threshold. And then install a water pressure regulator at the fresh water supply and make sure that you regulate that water pressure below 65 psi. And then lime or dirt under the pressure relief safety valve. So the lime is getting into contact and not making a good seal on the safety valve itself. So what you can do is you allow the appliance to cool, and then you can turn that counterclockwise manually and knock that lime loose so it has a good seat. Now we have water leaking at the water inlet filter. Remember, that's that little screen in the filter cover. You unscrew that, there are O-rings inside there. Make sure that if there's lime or dirt, you get those cleaned up. You can replace those or just replace the whole filter. Next we have power status LED is off, but the operating mode was selected. So the power supply to the appliance potentially could be switched off, so make sure it's on. And blown fuse, there's a 10 amp fuse right on the front side, right by the main switch. Make sure that that fuse is good. If it's not, you can replace it. And finally, the water heater stops working often and it's dumping a little water out in the drainage tray. What that means is that your unit is overheating and your pressure safety valve is opening up and dumping a little water out. There's a few causes for that. Primarily, you can adjust that water flow control valve and speed that water up. That'll cool that water heater down a little bit. These two are similar where the exhaust pressure switch is attached to the flue fan assembly. And if either of those aren't working, it can't cool the heater down and it'll get too hot and pop the safety valve.